This is a story from the western part of Africa, and it's about a farmer. Well, he wasn't a very good farmer or a very dedicated farmer. In fact, he mostly just planted things and then went out to harvest them when he thought they might be ready. He didn't take good care of his farm at all. One day, he went out to harvest yams that he'd been growing in one of the fields. And when he went out there, it was a field full of weeds, but under those weeds, he knew that there were yams growing. And he went and started to dig them up. And as he started to dig, he heard a voice saying, "Huh, you don't even weed and now you're digging up yams? Huh." Well, he looked around, and the only thing he saw around were his dog and a cow. And the cow didn't seem to be talking. And he said to the cow, "Did you say something?" And the dog said, "Don't be silly. It was one of the yams talking." Yams and dog? Ah! And he ran off, and he ran down the road until he met a man carrying a fish trap on his way to go fishing. And he said, I just heard the strangest thing. My dog says that the yams are talking, and the yam said that I didn't weed them properly, and the dog said that that the yam was talking instead of the cow. And they went back to see, and the dog was still there, and the cow was still there, and the yams were probably still there. And the man said, "See, look." And the dog didn't say anything. "Talk in front of this man." And the dog didn't say anything. "I'm going to beat you if you don't talk." And he went over and cut a small branch off of one of the palm trees and took it back over to the dog. And the tree said, "How dare you cut that branch off? Put it down." And the man started to throw the branch away, and the branch said, No, put me down gently." And the man put the branch down gently on a rock, and the rock said, "How dare you? Take that off of me." And both the farmer and the man with the fish trap went running off down the road. And as they ran along, they started thinking, that was a very strange thing. What happened? Everything was talking. And the fish trap said, "Well, why didn't you pick the branch up off of the rock?" And the fisherman threw the fish trap away, and they went running farther along the road. And they ran into a merchant who was carrying cloth, a big bundle of cloth. And they ran up to the merchant and said, "Quick, things have started talking. We're in trouble." And the merchant said, "Don't be silly. Things don't talk. People talk." And the first man, the farmer, said, "Well, you don't understand. I was farming and my yams apparently started to talk, and my dog reinforced that it was really the yams talking and not the cow. And when we went back to check, the tree and the branch and the rock all talked. And then as we were coming back along the road, his fish trap talked." And the merchant said, "Don't be silly. You're just imagining things. Why were you running over such a little thing? Okay, so you thought you heard a dog talk. Is that so scary that you would run away from it?" And the bundle of cloth said, "You'd run too if it happened to you." And the merchant dropped the bundle of cloth, and all three of them ran along the road. Well, they ran farther along the road, and they saw a man bathing in the river. And they were thirsty by that time, and they stopped and took a drink. And the man bathing said, "What are you doing? Why are you so tired? What have you been running from?" And they said, "Everything started to talk. The yams in his field, his dog, his tree, a rock, a fish trap, even my bundle of cloth all started to talk." And they explained the whole story and even the sequence of what happened. And the man said, "You think everything is talking to you? I think that maybe you should sit down and think about whether this is what's happening." And the water in the river said, "I want to know if he ever moved the branch off of that rock." And the man who had been bathing got up and ran with them all the way down the road, even farther. They ran all the way to the nearest village, and by that time they were totally exhausted. Well, when the people in the village saw these men come running into town, so upset, they began to gather, and they couldn't get any sensible story out of the men. And so finally they got the village chief to come out and ask them questions. The village chief came out, and they brought him his special chair that he liked to sit in when he was making decisions as the judge and chief of the village. And as he sat there fanning himself in the nice warm weather, he asked what happened. And the farmer explained that, well, that he thought his yams had started talking to them. At least that was what his dog had told him was going on. And when he went down the road to run away from that, he met the man with the fish trap, and they came back and they found out that, yes, things were talking, only it was also the tree and the rock. And they ran away, and the fish trap talked, and the man with the bundle of cloth, his cloth talked, and even the water in the river talked. And they didn't know what to do, and they ran all the way to the village. The chief of the village said, "You people are very, very foolish. There was nothing that threatened you. There was no danger. And I don't believe these things were even speaking to you. I think you were imagining the whole thing and making yourselves upset over nothing." And so the men all thought themselves very foolish and walked back. The man who had been bathing back to the river to get his clothes. The man with the cloth back to pick up his bundle of cloth. The fisherman back to pick up his fish trap. And the farmer back to his field. And the chief stood up and started to walk back to his own place that he'd been living and said, "What foolishness! Who could think that these things were talking?" And his chair said, "That's right. Who ever heard of a yam that could talk?" And that was a story called Talk.